Good morning, Sean Aqualine here, and in the studio with me is Dan Gellein, the manager of the Building Services Department for the City of Revelstoke. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Sean.
I thought it might be a good idea for you and I just to have a chat about what is going on with the city.
It's shaping up to be a busy year. We're ahead of where permits were last year, based on the statistics. Last year, by the end of February, there was 21 permits. This year, there was 36. The value last year was just over 7 million. This year it's just over 9 million at the end of February. As far as houses go, we're about double this year. New houses last year were 8. This year it's 15. Processing time's gone down from 86 days to 46 days.
You've had a lot of experience in this world for many years. You were on the island?
Most of my construction history is on the island. I've been working as a building official since 2004.
Which other districts were you working for?
I mostly work for North Cowichan on the island, which is the area surrounding Duncan, north of Duncan,
Yep.
Chemainus, Crofton, Maple Bay. And I also worked for the city of Nanaimo for a couple of years back in 2004.
Okay, so you do have a deep understanding of hyper small town like Chemainus that has a very, very specific design and look to it for sure.
Oh, correct, yeah.
Yeah, they're very stringent on their theater world and keeping things the way that they are.
Yeah, and it has an heritage aspect like the city of Revelstoke does as well.
That has to keep its respect, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you first got here, what was one of your first reactions on how things were laid out? Did you find it somewhat complicated as someone that knows this world?
Not necessarily. I was used to a paper system. The jurisdiction that I was working at, we've been on a digital system for the last 10 years, but prior to that, we were on a paper system. I was first introduced to a digital permitting system back in 2004 with Nanaimo, who was one of the front runners in the province. And we're now working on getting into a permitting system. We do have money in the budget, and we're just researching it and looking for proposals for a system at this point in time.
So you could see where over the last, call it 10 years, that some of the construction workers and builders were going, huh?
I guess, yeah. I mean, a paper system works. You're not going to get a virus and get shut down for 5 days like happened to City of Nanaimo. There are some, in my opinion, some advantages to a digital permitting system. And eventually, once you get into a digital permitting system, everything can go digital. You can accept the plans in a digital format. You can do your plan checking, which with a digital system like Bluebeam, and everything could actually go digital, including your final storage when you archive.
Give me a few examples of what you've done since you got here that have really helped this process move a little bit faster.
One of the changes that I made to improve and streamline was to require complete applications. If you're going to make a submittal now, it has to be complete. We're not going to wait for pieces of the puzzle to come together. We will accept the engineering requirements at a later date, but basically we'll want to see a complete application at the time it's brought in. We've introduced some new forms that basically outlay the whole process. It makes it a little easier for especially a new applicant to figure out the process.
So is the purpose of putting in your full view and vision so that they could then, if they have any slight changes, go back to you and you already understand the full aspect of it and it's easier for them to get the yes?
You could say that. I think the advantage of requiring a full application is for self-preservation. If we're extremely busy and we're trying to pull all these pieces of the puzzle together, it's just going to bog us down. It's also to the advantage of the regular builders. They're typically providing us with a complete application and they know the process. It helps everybody, really.
Now, I sit on the Economic Development Commission, and you were there and you had a bit of a presentation on who you were.
Right.
And one of the questions that had come up was, and forgive me if I'm not saying this right because I'm not in this world, but there was a talk of trusses or something to that effect, or there was some sort of red stamp that had to happen prior to, and it was very problematic for the contractors. What was that, and has it been eliminated?
I guess the issue is the engineering requirements for Revelstoke.
Okay.
The snow loads in Revelstoke are actually above Part 9 in the BC Building Code, which is simple design. So complex buildings, Part 3, typically always require an engineer. But with the snow loads in Revelstoke, we require a structural engineer to sign on for every building. The 2012 BC Building Code ramped up the snow loads in the climatic data from, I think it was around 5.8 to 7.3. 7.3 translates to around 150 pounds ground snow load. Once you've applied the formula, you're still up into around 90 pounds on a roof snow load, 85 to 90 pounds on a roof snow load. So that's above the tables that are provided in the code. So we essentially don't have the tools to calculate that kind of a building. Even though I'm used to doing that on the island where there's much less snow, here we need to have an engineering design, which falls into part 4 of the code.
And that does come at a specific cost because you'd have to be looking at different types of wood for different types of structure.
It's going to require a number of things. So once the structure falls into part 4, it also triggers needs for a seismic design. So even though Revelstoke is in a low seismic zone, unlike the island, you're still going to have to there's consideration for seismic design. So there's tie down requirements and other things get triggered in that as well. This requirement is essentially anchoring the structure to the foundation so that it's connected. You can have a design that, say, is quite open and has a lot of windows, but it may trigger the need for, say, something like a moment frame, like a steel moment frame. So it definitely has cost to the structural side of it.
So since you've been here now, are you starting to feel like the joints are unloosening a little bit and some of the contractors and developers are feeling like their feet are starting to move forward?
I would think so, yeah. I'm seeing a high level of construction here. The average home I'm seeing is being built well above the prescriptive requirements of the code. We just had a workshop earlier in the month on the STEP code, the BC STEP code, which are higher levels of energy efficiency, and also it was on air tightness. We had a good response to that. The course was completely full.
And anyone that's building something on a smaller level, call it a shed or a garage, are those going through a little bit more ease as they're not as of a big project as, say, something going up by the hill?
Yeah, so say something like a garage, it is a less complex building, so the design can be simplified. If you're talking like a garden shed, anything under 10 square meters is exempt from the BC building code.
So keep your sheds to under 10 square meters.
Yes, even though they still need to comply with the zoning bylaw requirements, so they have to be cited correctly. Yeah.
All right. So if somebody has a plan in place right now, they want to start building sometime between now and summer, preferably earlier, I would imagine. What's the steps? How do they get a hold of you, and what is the first step to get going on it?
To apply for a permit, well, I'd say probably the best thing is to get the application form and work through the steps. A number of things that are outlined in that. Some of the major ones are complete plans and the engineering requirements. In BC now, you also have to have warranty, so you can still do an owner-builder application. There's an exam you have to do. All of the registered builders have warranty in place, and they have to provide the 10-year warranty, the 2, 5, and 10. The best thing is probably to come by the office and get the application form and have a discussion with us about what's needed for an application.
Excellent. Well, we've been chatting with the Building Services Manager, Dan Gellein. If you have any questions, you can contact him through the lovely Nikki Ball at the City of Revelstoke. Dan, thanks for coming in and just giving a heads up as to where we're at in the process. And it's good to see that it seems that as if things are moving forward, which is what a lot of the developers and contractors were hoping for.
Good. Well, it's nice to meet you, Sean, and have a great day.
Thanks, Dan.